Welcome back to Donington Park. It's time for the bookatrack.com Caterham Superlight R300 Championship. The cars making their way onto the grid for the second race of the weekend. Last time out, it was Alton Park that played host to the championship, and it gave Paul Wilson a third win of the season. James Sharrock had headed up the pit lane the wrong way early on. Paul Fleury had a spin, but Wilson was way out clear. He led race 2 with Peter Ratcliffe behind him. John Ramsey fell out with Martin Amerson coming into his lops. Amerson continued, Ramsey got turned around. Stuart Simpson was the next one in strife. He had a big spin into the gravel at Druids, and that was the end of him. Then Peter Ratcliffe was assaulted by Ian Payne, who went for a gap that was there, but he didn't pull out in time. Bits of car went flying. He was very nearly attacked by Paul Manyweathers, who outbraked himself at Cascades. He too ended up in the gravel. Mark Shaw led. Paul Wilson tried for a gap on the inside, but suffered his first defeat of the year. Mark Shaw coming through to score victory, but Wilson is a point clear in the championship. Shaw second and Peter Ratcliffe third. Magma Happel fourth ahead of Sharrock. James Ramsey to round out the top 6 after 4 rounds. The cars making their way onto the grid. A win in the first race of the weekend for Paul Wilson ahead of Ian Payne and James Sharrock. Race 2 about to get underway. Lights go out now. A bit of creeping for one or two of them. Got a good start made by Payne. Not a great start by the green car of Paul Wilson then. Mark Shaw looking to try to gain ground on the outside line as they head into Redgate, but it's the borrowed car of Payne that leads the way just. Everybody slots in behind him then as they go through Redgate, and this being a 30-minute race. The car's onto the top of the Craner curves for the first time. 1 or 2 run wide, and you're on board here with Jonathan Ramsey. Down through the Craners towards the old hairpin. Lap 1. The race leader, Ian Payne, trying to keep everybody at bay as they turn their way for the first time out of the old hairpin. But Paul Wilson in the green car, beaten only once this year, is going to be up with him before long. I think he's third at the moment. This is Ramsey's view as they go now towards Schwartz Curve, heading towards McLean's. Ian Payne it is who leads the pack. James Sharrock is second. In third place, Mark Shaw, and Paul Wilson has dropped into fourth place. So he's got some work to do, but he's got lots of time in which to do it. Fifth is Peter Ratcliffe in the black car there, turning their way out of Coppice Corner for the first time. The R300's the fastest of the cars within Caterham Motorsports' portfolio of championships, and 2 off the road already, trying to dig themselves out. Number 17 is one of them, you can see, that's Ian Anderson. And 13, I think, was the other one, Mark Coling. Well, they both got going, lots of ground lost. As Mark Shaw hits the front, he's now the leader as they wriggle their way out of Fogarty. Somebody gets all sideways in the background. Magma Happel there trying to gain a place as well. They come down towards the Melbourne hairpin, and the blue car of Wilson tries for the inside. And look at this, Jonathan Ramsey has been assaulted. There's another car parked right up against him and going no further, and those two, by the look of it, are in the middle of the road. 3 of them, in fact, in the middle of the road. The orange car is Martin Amerson. He's definitely going no further. 49, you can see there, is Jonathan Mitchell. And the red flag is being sort of shown. And yes, that's unfurled itself. The race is being stopped. And with a track littered with cars, there is no option because there's just no way through that. Now here's a replay. You're on board with Paul Fleury. Past him comes number 14, John Ramsey. He turns and gets it wrong. Yes, that was the car we saw getting sideways, and he comes back across the road, I think, and gets clobbered. So Ramsey makes his move on Fleury, arrives at Fogarty's too quickly, can't get the car slowed down in time. That means as he tries to turn in, he loses the back of it, spins round, and bang, gets done head on by Martin Amerson's orange car. That in turn bounces off 49, Jonathan Mitchell, and blocks the road. Restart. Good getaway this time by Paul Wilson, better than first time around, and he leads the way on the run down towards Redgate Corner, and he gets himself ahead of Ian Payne therefore as they turn now into Redgate. So it's a slightly depleted field, but they turn their way to the top of the Craner curves, and it's going to be just the result of part 2 that will give us the result of the race itself. Stuart Simpson, he was in the gravel at Alton Park. He's steered clear of trouble so far here at Donington, and he plunges downhill for the first time. Working their way through the Craner curves to the old hairpin, it's just Ian Payne on the tail of Paul Wilson looking for a way by. They head up towards Schwartz Curve for the first time. Stuart Simpson here looking to try to pick up a spot as well as they now work the run up towards Schwartz Curve for the first time, but it rather looks like the top 2 is getting away. Stuart Simpson, who started racing in Caterham's last year, making his way for the first time on this restart up towards Coppice, but he's not making progress at the moment. He's there or thereabouts. He's going to have to try and use the slipstream to his advantage now on the run down towards Fogarty's. 2 race leaders look like they're getting away. Paul Wilson versus Ian Payne for the top slot. On board with Simpson. Here they come, side by side for the lead. Paul Wilson in the green car. The red car is that of Ian Payne, but he hasn't been able to keep the race lead there. Third is Peter Ratcliffe's black Caterham R300, and one out wide all over the curb. Big slide there. 77 it is that plunges off the road, Richard Borton. And this is what he did wrong. similar to John Ramsey's moment, really. Comes in too quickly, loses the back, pendulums its way across the gravel, but thankfully everybody managed to avoid him. And although he's in the gravel, he digs himself out, carries on in the race. There's somebody else in trouble there in the pit lane. That's Michael Rowland, by the look of it, going no further as 33 dives up on the inside line there. Very nearly contact as they come out of the corner, but thankfully James Sharrock gets through into second place without any bumping and boring. But Paul Wilson now leads the way, and he leads by a couple of lengths. And if Sharrock and the grass-cutting Payne and Mark Shaw in car 3 are all going to squabble, that's going to hold them up. Mark Shaw goes from 4th to 2nd. They were so busy squabbling, they left the door wide open. Shaw got a toe and had the track space and ducked up the inside for 2nd position. He's the only other person, other than Paul Wilson, to have won a race this year. He won at Alton Park. Wilson has won 4 out of 5 so far. He leads, but he's being caught, look. Mark Shaw, and it's worth making the point as ever that he did get as far as Formula 3000 in his first racing career, so he's certainly got racecraft on his side. He's in 2nd spot with, behind him, James Sharrock, something of a Caterham expert, and then Ian Payne running in 4th in the red car. Turning their way out of McLean's now, heading up towards Coppice. Now what can Payne do to get past them? Former road sport racer Paul Wilson, 2 corners later, finds himself with a big lead, doesn't he? Mark Shaw, having got himself almost onto the tail of Wilson, has to defend for a couple of corners, and that costs him all of the time. Wilson getting his head down now as we come towards the closing stages of the race. He's trying to build up that lead. What he doesn't want to do is get involved in a battle. He's quite happy for them to do that themselves, and look at this, up the inside goes the borrowed car of Payne. Toboggans his way through on the inside, locked up, he scrabbles through. That gravel on the road is going to make life pretty slippery, so they're all trying to keep clear of that and ride the curbs. So up front, Paul Wilson, having a very, very good season, leads the way. Who's going to be second? Shaw on the inside of Payne. Up the inside of all of them comes Sharrock in the grey car. Does he go through? Yes, he does. Wide in, tight out, up the inside, 2 places gained. Great battling this, typical Caterham racing, but it's for second, not for the race lead. It's playing into the hands of Wilson. Shaw locks up, scrabbles past Payne, who got out of the way there, thought, get out of the way of this, I can see an accident coming. Mark Shaw then terrorises Ian Payne into submission, and he gets 3rd place as he comes over the line. Payne straight back at him then. The green car of Paul Wilson leads the way, and there, second is Sharrock. Mark Shaw in the black and Dayglow green tries to go to the inside. Is he going to get the 3rd place? He does, yes, on the inside. And dropping back 1 spot is Ian Payne. Payne hasn't given up yet, though. He wants 3rd place back, and he can still get that, assuming he keeps the momentum up now through the Craner curves and doesn't lose a length or so. They break for the old hairpin. They turn their way through the right-hander. Paul Wilson enjoying an absolutely fabulous season. 4 out of 5 races won so far. It could become 5 out of 6 pretty soon. He leads the way as the cars now power their way once more from McLean's up towards Coppice. Ian Payne fighting back on the inside. Magma Haffel is the best of the rest, ahead of 75 there you can see, which is the car of Flick Haig. On board with Paul Fleury, who is next in the queue. And Paul Fleury, normally a pretty quick driver as well, so can he gain ground here, coming on to Starkey Straight once again. Flick Haig ahead. Flick, somebody who's got faster and faster in recent seasons. 2nd, 3rd and 4th, still squabbling as they come to the end of Starkey Straight. Flick Haig trying to make a move on Magma Haffel. Fleury gets himself all in trouble onto the curb, but he spins. Is he going to be avoided? Yes, thankfully, but he stuck himself in the gravel bed. That's that. Paul Fleury, I don't think he's got the momentum to drive out of that. He might try, but I think he's pretty much bogged down. The other problem he's got is when to bail out of the car, because if anybody else goes wide there, and we've seen people straight lining the chicane, they're just going to T-bone him. Quite wisely, he decides to bail and make a run for it. Paul Fleury out of the race. This is how it all happened. He gets a toe, then increases the speed. He goes to the outside, can't slow the car down, gets onto the curb, gets onto the grass, loses what little traction he had. Round comes the back, the gravel bed does its job. That's the end of it for Paul Fleury. So Paul Wilson, the sales director from Newbury, is on target for a race win, seemingly, but Mark Shaw is just hanging on to 2nd, and Ian Payne is back on the inside for 3rd as they work their way around the Melbourne hairpin. James Sharrock slips back into 4th position. Up they come now towards the left-hander of Goddard's. And Mark Shaw for 2nd, under huge pressure from Payne. Now can Ian Payne sprint alongside him as they come up towards the flag? Wilson wins yet again, 5 out of 6 for him. And Mark Shaw, despite a bit of rear damage, just hangs on to 2nd place. There are still battles to be resolved, look, as they come out of the Melbourne hairpin now. Jason Redding in 95, right up behind him. There's Ben Tompkins in the red car, number 26. Battles raging on right to the very end here. Mark Coling in this, he was in the gravel early on, remember, he's dug himself out well, and he's going to hang on for 11th place. They come up towards the checkered flag. It doesn't matter which class of Caterham, there's battling, there's action right the way to the checkered flag, whether it's a 20 or a 30-minute race. Exactly what Caterham Racing has been famous for. It's a win, 5 out of 6 for Paul Wilson. The gap this time over 6 seconds. Mark Shaw busy defending his second place, therefore dropping back, but he keeps the place from Ian Payne. James Sharratt comes home 4th, Flick Haig 5th, and Stuart Simpson is 6th.
It was one of those races where everyone was dicing and you had to go defensive and you can't really get away, and you know there's a time going to come where you're going to get your chance, and when your chance comes you've got to take it. But I got lucky with the restart and starting from my grid position, so didn't make a good first start, and I made a good start second time. But the DPR car was great. Got to thank the boys for putting so much work into getting it done.
In the championship, Paul Wilson leads. Gosh, what a surprise. But only by 9 points, despite all the winning he's done from Mark Shaw. Magma Haffel is 3rd, Peter Ratcliffe 4th, equal with James Sharratt, and Ian Payne creeping into the picture now. He runs 6th. The next stop for the bookertrack.com, Caterham Superlight R300, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, 24th of June.